Enjoy with your headphones for a better listening experience.
Please watch till the end of the video to have the most scariest part of the story.
Redditors, who spend a lot of time in seclusion, at sea, in the air or out in the wilderness. What's the creepiest or most mysterious thing you've seen, found, or experienced? Was out in the mountains for 4 days by myself. Felt like I was being followed over 30+ miles. First night, I slept not in my tent. It was destroyed and cut to pieces. On a 2-week solo backpacking trip, I had 4 days in seclusion between ranger station check-ins. On the first day of the seclusion, I felt like I was being stalked. As I lay in my tent that night, I could hear what sounded to me like footsteps around my camp, but never coming too close. In the morning, I checked all around and found no evidence of footprints or having any wildlife around me. I broke down camp and took off trying to put it behind me. The second night was the same thing. I grew so paranoid that when I would hike during the day, I would go over rocks, walk through streams, anything to try and break the trail so I couldn't be tracked. I'd go around a blind turn and then sit there for an hour waiting to see if something would come behind. At night, I couldn't sleep for more than October 15th minutes before waking up. Finally, I got to the ranger station check-in and told them what I had been experiencing. I went and set up camp as close to the station as I could. Later, the rangers, they offered for me to sleep on their couch for comfort, and so I could actually sleep. I accepted and stayed the night indoors. I walked out to my camp in the morning, and it had been destroyed. My tent was cut on the side, sleeping bag ripped, and backpack turned inside out. The rangers came and reported it, took pictures and everything. I ended up getting one of the rangers to give me a ride back to base camp and going home the next day. I absolutely believe that it was a person. There had been reports of 2 hikers missing a check-in and being later found dead. IRC both were deemed accident. One slipped and rolled to the bottom of a canyon, and the other, they believe, drank bad water, become dehydrated and confused, and walked away from camp with no supplies. The thing that caught my attention was that the tent was cut clean in rips like a knife would do, and the backpack was emptied like someone was going through it. Not damaged or destroyed at all. This, combined with the other hiker's death, gave me speculation. I'm fairly confident in contempt in the wilderness, and this was one of the few times I've really felt scared and out of place. Where I was hiking, it's policy that you submit an itinerary with base camp, and then they pass along that information to each ranger station. This way, if someone doesn't show up, the rangers can at least have an idea of where to start searching. The rangers at base camp looked through their database thinking someone was just messing with me and was on the same trails as I was and having some fun. They found that I was the only hiker within 7 miles of that station. The hikers that had previously been there had checked in at another station over 10 miles away. I was supposed to be alone, but I wasn't. I used to work for the U.S. Forest Service and sometimes worked with an older gentleman that had lots of interesting stories from his many years of life. But by far the most chilling tale was from when he was working in a very secluded area of wilderness and was walking through the forest when a thunderstorm hit. He had seen an opening in the hill a little while back and headed to it to take shelter. Once inside, he shined his flashlight to check he wasn't going to wake up a bear or something and found the skeleton of a man sitting in a lawn chair with a rifle rigged up so he had been able to shoot himself. The skeleton was still wearing jeans and a flannel shirt. I've met a lot of bullshitters in my time, and this guy wasn't one. He'd honestly just led an interesting life. So I worked at a ranch in southern Arizona, right on the border. I didn't really consider it to be secluded because I had horses and cows. In hindsight, I guess it was really lonely because sometimes they talk back to me. Anyways, doing fence borders with a guy from another camp, and we had to go down into this dry river bed. As we round the bend, we see a bunch of beat-up trucks sitting there armed to the teeth. Turns out we ran into some kind of big deal for a cartel. The other guy told me to keep steady, and we just walked straight through them on our horses. Everyone staring at us, looking like they were ready to shoot us up if we made one false move. I asked about it when we got to the other side without turning into Swiss cheese, and the more experienced rancher told me, the cartel only cares about border patrol and cops. They know this is a ranch, and they know we roam around here, and they know we don't say much. Reason being, if they ever assumed the ranchers were the snitches, they could easily find our little ranch houses. Only had one person to so many acres. Could have been offed and left there for many days before someone noticed. With all that in mind, I had a very passive relationship with that kind from then on. I live in Australia. It's just outside of a town nestled at the bottom of mountains, and it's not too secluded since I live with my family, and you'll generally come across someone's property every 500 meters, but there are some stretches where you won't see a house for a kilometer. One night my mom and I are coming home pretty late at night, and we were just talking and listening to the radio. We come around a corner, and we both saw this creature that I still don't know what it is till this day. But it had the body the size of a medium dog, mangy-looking black fur, an almost abnormally large head, big green eyes, which was the first thing I noticed, but most weirdly an almost impossibly long and thin neck, like it shouldn't be able to support the large head. My mother and I are cussing like sailors at this point and make a U-turn around to get a better look at it, and within 10 seconds there was no trace of it. Normally I'd brush this off as probably a wild dog, but the body just didn't look like a dig and it was too big for a cat, even a wild one. The real scary part is that my family and I have seen that maybe 2 to 3 times now, almost exclusively late at night. However, my SO's father has said that he's also seen it twice, once at night and once at daytime, and I get the feeling we're not the only people in town to have seen it. I don't live in Tasmania, so it's pretty much impossible or damn near impossible to be a Tasmanian devil or ethylamine. Former 68W with 3 combat tours. I might be able to explain this for you. During Saddam's reign, him and his friends were crazy wealthy, like richer than God wealthy. Oftentimes they'd be so wealthy they'd start running out of expensive shit to buy. Seems like once they had the big houses and fancy cars, they'd just buy crazy shit like gold toilets, seen it, gold guns, also seen it, and even sometimes large animals of prey, vultures, falcons, tigers, etc. The thing is, when Saddam fell, so did a lot of his friends. I've heard stories of the house staff of a lot of these people not wanting the animals to be killed when looters ransacked the estates of the wealthy. Instead, they'd release the animals. I guess they thought the animals had a better chance of survival on their own. That's what we were told by our first sergeant. He could have been with us, still crazy. This was one of those places in Montana where there's nothing for as far as you can see, maybe 300 miles east of the Idaho state line. It's been maybe 12 years since this happened. I was parked less than 10 yards from the body, and I'm pretty sure it was human. I got out of the car and walked towards it until I recognized a head, turned away from me, and a hand. The rest of the body was turned away from me at like a 1 o'clock position. Less than 10 yards at that point. Going back to the car is quick, because I'm more scared now. Lean in the driver's window and grab the phone off the center console. Dial and no service at all. Jump in the car and look out the windshield. No body. They were quick and strong. Maybe a mountain lion, but still, had to have been very quick and very quiet. I never called the police when I got reception because I wasn't entirely legal at the time. I had just gotten out of trouble in Washington by joining the Army. Long story there. I was on an outward bound trip in the White River National Forest in Colorado. A part of OB trips is a solo, which can be anywhere from 12 to 48 hours, in which the participants are by themselves with a journal and some snacks. I set up a sweet tent in a tree grouping. It had rained the night before, so the ground was pretty soft. After setting up, I walked around the area. I felt pretty tired and decided to take a nap for 8 hours. I woke up in the middle of the night to a bunch of twigs cracking. It turned on my torch to look to see if it was the instructors or any kind of animal. I even called out, "Hey, you good?" Not sure why I said it that way. Nothing. In the morning, I found some big cat tracks right by my tent that were not there when I took my nap. It was really unnerving knowing that a mountain lion was near me when I was sleeping. I told the guides about it, and they got really particular about keeping our food away from where we were sleeping. I was on a bow of a sailboat crossing the Atlantic in pretty heavy winds, going about 15 knots. Crew had to be stationed alone on the bow in 2-hour shifts at all times, keeping an eye out for anything in the water. About 10 meters away from me, I see a weird glint in the water. Then I realize it's a partially submerged shipping container. Before I had time to even open my mouth, we passed it by, missing it by a few feet. And that's the story of how I nearly got shipwrecked in a storm in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean.
Thanks for watching. Please comment, like, share and subscribe. The Internet Surfer on YouTube for more horror and scary stories.